Hi folks, I'm Hector Garcia, CPA and Small Business Advisor. And during January of every year, small business owners are scrambling to get their 1099 forms to their independent contractors. I'm going to show you in this video how to file those forms using QuickBooks Desktop. Now I'm going to start with a little bit of a background or introduction. You can skip to the minutes and seconds below if you want to skip the introduction and go straight to the tutorial, but I want to make sure that we are on the same page. A 1099 NEC form. It is the form that businesses use to report to the IRS and in some cases the states how much money they've paid to their independent contractors. These are workers that are not classified as employees and the businesses just pay them a straight check and they not do any withholding of taxes or register them as employees to then give them a W-2 at the end of the year. The 1099 NEC is for subcontractors, independent contractors only. So if you're using QuickBooks Desktop, the other thing I wanted to add is you must be in a newer version. But by that I mean it cannot be more than 3 years old. So let's assume that you are in the year 2021 and you're filing for tax year 2020. Your QuickBooks should not be older than QuickBooks 2018 or 17. I'm not sure exactly which one, but if it's older than those, it probably will not work because QuickBooks needs to be in a most current updated version to be able to allow you to file that. Now, QuickBooks Desktop in itself doesn't have a built-in 1099 reporting capability. What it does is it takes the information of the payments that you record throughout the year and it sends that to one of Intuit's partner for 1099 e-filing services called tax1099.com. We're actually going to show you exactly what that process looks like once it goes in there. So let's get started. I have QuickBooks Desktop open. For some background, I'm going to go ahead and run a profit and loss report and just kind of show you that during the tax year 2020, because let's say we're going to file that one, we have a total of subcontractor costs for $79,000 and some material costs for $5,000 or so. Now, generally speaking, the payments that get paid to the subcontractors or the independent contractors, they all get reported on the 1099. In some cases, you would have a separation between labor and materials. And if you're getting a direct reimbursement for those materials, probably you don't include the materials as well. But generally speaking, all payments to the subcontractors get included. We're going to talk about mapping those accounts and making sure that they're all included, or maybe we're going to purposely exclude some. We're going to talk about that. So just for some background, there we go. We have potentially $85,000 worth of direct costs that maybe could be reported on a 1099. We're going to dig a little deeper to kind of see that. So I'm going to double click on my total direct cost expense so we get a detailed report of all the transactions that were made through the year. Okay, so you get to see them here. There's a whole bunch of transactions. Obviously, we're focused on the ones that contain people, because typically we do 1099s for people and not for companies, although some businesses do give companies that they paid 1099s as well. We're not going to get into that. Let's just make the assumption that we're only going to give it to individuals. So we're going to see all those expenses in there. Another way to kind of see who you paid is to go into reports, go into company and financial, and then click on expenses by vendor summary. Then in there, we're going to go to dates and put last fiscal year. And then you're going to see all the expenses by vendor. And hopefully all your transactions have a vendor in it. Otherwise, it's impossible to track your 1099. In this particular example, I only got 3 vendors, all 3 individuals to kind of illustrate all the payments that we made. And we have a total of $85,000, the same $85,000 we saw on the first page. So we're going to make the assumption in a high level that if we just continue to prepare a 1099, these are going to happen automatically. All these people are going to get this amount reported automatically in the forms. However, that's not the case because there's a mapping process and there's also a process to assign specific vendors as 1099 contractors in the first place, so QuickBooks knows to report to them or not. Otherwise, you would be issuing 1099s to every single vendor that you're paying to. So you get to tell QuickBooks which vendors get a 1099 and which ones do not. Okay, so for the time being, let's just leave it like that and let's start the process to see what that looks like before we kind of interject and make sure the settings are correct. So I'm going to click on vendors. I'm going to click on 1099 forms. and then I'm going to click on print e-file forms. So once I click on that, it's going to tell me, hey, are you sure you want to do that? The forms have changed. I guess that's fine. And then we're going to click yes. Notice that QuickBooks right away has a pop-up that says, hey, we're going to send you to a different service to do this. And there's either a 1099 NEC, which is for independent contractors. And here's the due date, right? So depending on when you're doing this, it will have a different due date. And there's an old form, the 1099 MISC, which you can still use it to report other payments that are not for independent contractors. We're going to skip that conversation on this video. We're going to be laser focused on independent contractors. So then I'm going to click on get started, and you're going to see that the next screen shows me all the vendors and the accounts potentially they could be using. Notice that they're all blank because we actually haven't enabled any of those vendors to be 1099s. We're going to get there in a second. Then when I hit on continue, and then it shows me a whole bunch of blanks, and then continue, and basically nothing is working the way it's supposed to. So we're going to go back and click and close that, and then we're going to go back and make sure that these vendors are marked as a 1099 vendor. That way QuickBooks knows to include their information. So this was kind of the first step. So I'm going to click on vendors, click on vendor center, and then I'm going to double click on any of the vendors. And then I'm going to click on the payments tab, actually not the payments tab, the tax settings tab. And then it says vendor eligible for 1099. I must click on the checkbox and I have to enter their social security number. So I'm just going to make up a number here. So we save it in here, and then I'm going to click on save. And then I'm going to go to the second one and do the same thing. Go into tax settings, make up a social security number. And just for illustration, I'm going to mark the first two and not mark the third one. So we just kind of see what happens if we fail to do that. So I'm going to go back into vendors, 1099 forms, and go to print e-file 1099 forms. Then I'm going to click on yes, and then click on get started. And you will notice that now you start seeing the vendors propagate in there. Now you're also going to notice next to it that it says account used. So if you used one account from your chart of accounts, one category and one category only, like in the case of Marcos, you're going to click on the drop down menu next to it, or on the next screen anyway. It's going to tell you which account from your chart of accounts is being used. If that vendor it's hitting multiple accounts or multiple categories, it's going to say multiple. So I'm going to click on continue so we can see that. Then it's going to review my 1099 info. This is going to be tax ID, name, address, all that stuff. Then we're going to click on continue. And then you're going to notice that in this screen, here's where I get to choose which of these accounts. Okay, so we have one called materials and one called subcontractor. So which of these accounts are the ones that we're going to map into the 1099 form? Now, if I only wanted subcontractors to report and not materials, then I would drop down here where it says omit payments and switch that over to NEC box 1. Okay, so we're going to put that NEC box 1, and that's how we tell QuickBooks that all the payments being used in the subcontractor expense account are the ones that are going to be reported in there. But the ones on the materials, those are going to be omitted. We're not going to report those. So we're going to see what that looks like. Then I'm going to hit continue. And then you have included payments and excluded payments. So I'm going to click on included payments, and we get to see all the transactions, transaction by transaction, all the ones that are going to be included in the 1099. And then when I click on excluded payments, you're going to see any transactions that have been excluded. You see that none have been excluded yet. And we'll discuss that in a second. Then I'm going to hit continue. Then it's going to review the total dollar amounts. Okay. Notice that Diana Ramos doesn't get any, probably because we used a different category. And so the only one that's technically getting reported is Marcos. We're going to go back and look at Diana in a second and see why that's reporting as 0. Then I'm going to hit continue. And then right before I do the next step, which is click on go to e-file service, which will take me to the 1099 reporting system. So I'm going to skip that. We'll go back to that and show you Diana Ramos and see the payment. So notice that there's 2 payments here, one for $5,890 and then one for $500. I'm going to double click on each one and see this one is going to materials, which is the reason why this is happening. And then you're going to see the second one. This one's going to subcontractor cost. But the reason why this one's not reporting is because the total dollar amount that gets reported, it's under 600. So even though we did have some expenses, reportable expenses, they didn't add up to 600. That's why they're being excluded. That's why she's being excluded 100%. So I'm going to double click on this one and change it to 700 just so you can see. And by the way, it's not one single payment for more than 600. It's the accumulation of payments that need to pass the $600 threshold for them to be reportable. Then I'm going to click on yes. Make sure that this is there under 700. Click on save and close. And yes. And then we're going to go back to vendors, 1099 forms, print an e-file. And yes. Get started. Click continue, continue, continue. Then we're going to see included payments, same thing. But notice that now you see the $700 there. And then I'm going to go excluded payments. None have been excluded. And then I'm going to click on continue. Then you're going to see that now the $700 is reporting to Diana Ramos, but not on map payments because those are the ones that we told that they're not going to be included because they're materials expense. If I wanted to include materials expense as well, I would go back, and then here where it says materials, I would not select omit, I would select box 1. So as long as I tell it, yes, include that one, then I can hit continue and then continue. And you notice that now her reportable amount, it's on the $6,000 range. So that should be pretty clear right there and then. So I'm going to close that, and then I'm going to go back to that $700 check. I'm going to change it back to 400. That way it doesn't add up to 600 for the whole year. I'm going to click save and close. And then I'm going to go back and do this again just so I can show you something. So I'm going to go 1099 e-file. Yes. Follow the prompt. Get started. Continue. Continue. And we're going to exclude materials. And then hit continue. Continue. And then notice that that's showing 0 again. So that's really the point. Okay. Now I'm going to take this check. I'm just going to double click this check here and duplicate it. Okay. Let's do a different check number. And we're going to make this one, let's say 250. That way we have one for 400 and one for 250. That way the addition adds up to 600. So we're going to see how that works. Go back to 1099 forms, print any file forms, click yes, get started, continue, 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 continue. And then notice that now the addition of the transactions, 650, 2 transactions add up to 600, they are reportable. Then I'm going to hit continue. Actually, I'm just going to close out of there. So we're kind of seeing the construction of this thing. Now I'm going to go back and change this one to 150. So the addition of the 2, it's under the 600, just so we can see. So we got the 400 and the 600 that adds up. Sorry, the 400 and 150 adds up to under 600. I'm going to go into vendors, 1099 forms, and now I'm going to click on 1099 summary report just so you can see something. Then I'm going to go here, and then it shows me my two vendors, Diana and Marcus. These are the 2 that we marked as 1099 eligible. Notice that you can click on all vendors, and it will actually show me all my vendors that are being paid, not just the ones that are marked as 1099. Then we have only 1099 accounts. If I click on all accounts, it's going to show me all the transactions that even go across the accounts that have been mapped to do a 1099, like the material one. And then we have thresholds. I can also ignore the threshold. And then the other one is here where it says miscellaneous. I'm going to change that to NEC just because they changed the forms. They used to be only miscellaneous forms. Now it's either miscellaneous or NEC. So I have to make sure I select NEC because that's the non-employment compensation one. And now you're going to notice that we have potentially all these dollar amounts being reported. Now remember, this Robert Gonzalez got paid $10,000 more than the 600, but they're not marked as 1099s. So they would be excluded because when I switch this back to only 1099 vendors, that one goes away. And then the threshold, this is being ignored because again, it's $600 the minimum. So if I go to use threshold, that one goes away as well. And then when you see all allowed accounts, I can only put 1099 accounts, and then you're going to see the entire category, that one that's not being mapped goes away as well. So ideally, this is where you want to be. This particular report with only 1099 vendors, only allowed accounts, only thresholds and NEC are ultimately the ones that will get reported. So this is the report that's going to basically be your work before you process those forms. So obviously, if something's missing, then you want to go back and review. So for example, if I click on all vendors, notice that Robert Gonzalez is missing the tax ID and not marked for 1099. That's why that's happening. So I'm going to leave this report active here. And then here, I'm just going to bring it here to the right. And here on the vendor side, I'll make this a little bit smaller just so we can kind of track this report on the background here. So I'm going to double click on Robert Gonzalez and I'm going to go to tax settings and mark him as eligible for 1099. I'm going to leave the tax ID out just so you can kind of see the dynamic of that. But I am going to mark it as 1099. Then I click OK. And then no, yeah, because we're skipping the tax ID. I notice that this report now shows Robert for $10,000 in there. So that's perfect. Now, I'm going to go into Robert. I notice that there's 3 payments to Robert. There's one check for $10,000. There's a check for, or at least the check transaction for $25,000. But the debit or the reference number says debit. It doesn't have a check number. And then we see this one for $11,280, which is also going to subcontractor costs, but is being paid from a credit card. Now, if you look in here, the only thing that's being reported is $10,000. This is QuickBooks is actually excluding 2 transactions for me. It's excluding the one that I paid with a credit card because IRS rules prevent you from reporting payments made from a credit card to a vendor because the credit card processor, it's already reporting that income to them. So they want to avoid double dipping. That's why any payments with a credit card you pay to vendors will be excluded. And also what's interesting enough, payments with a debit card are also excluded. So if you put the word debit there, that's going to be excluded. So there's a couple of things. If you put debit, if you put DBT, if you put Visa, DBT actually. So if you put Visa, if you put MC, if you put M card, if you put debit, DBT, if you put any of these codes telling QuickBooks that this is not a check or a direct money transfer that is being paid with a card of some sort, QuickBooks is going to exclude them. I'm going to show you that. I'm going to hit save and close again. Okay. And I'm going to go into the reporting process. So I'm going to go to 1099 forms, print any file 1099 forms, click on yes, then click on get started, then click on continue. Then notice that there's the missing tax ID. That's letting me know, hey, we can't move forward until you put the tax ID in there. So let me put the social security number or tax ID and click on continue. And then same box, this is the mapping box. Then I can click on continue. Then notice the button view excluded payments. That's finally going to be useful. So I'm going to click on that. And then you notice that there's that transaction for $25,000 being excluded, specifically because in the reference number, we put DBT. If I delete that and just leave it blank and click on save and close, it will be removed from the excluded. And then if you notice, I click on continue. Now Robert Gonzalez has all $35,000 being reported to him. But if I were to, I'm just going to leave the screen open here so we can kind of see it on real time. If I were to go back to this check and put here Visa, I think that's the other one, hit save and close. On this screen, notice in real time, it gets excluded. Now, let me go online just to show you. In Google, I'm going to type QuickBooks 1099 excluded payments. And we're going to look for the article of that. So I think it's this one right here. I'll put a link to that in the description so you can see it and you don't have to go search it. But there will be an article somewhere around here that actually breaks them down. So let's see if it's this one. There we go. This is the one. And I'm going to go ahead and put a link to that so you don't have to go search it. But these are the words right here. Debit, debit card, DBT, DBT card, D card, debit CD, Visa, MasterCard, Master RC, MC, Chase Discover, Diners, and PayPal. Why? Well, that's how QuickBooks decided to do it. So if any of these words are in the reference section of the check. So up here, if any of those words are typed in there and is a check, a QuickBooks check, that those payments are going to be excluded from the list. Now, why is that not in a quickly, easy to access help file somewhere? I don't know. Like, you kind of have to discover this. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, so if you are going to pay someone with a debit card, with Visa, MasterCard, debit card with your bank, you want to make sure you put that little code in there so you don't double report that to the contractor. Okay, so that takes care of that. And we also notice that the one that's originally with a credit card, regardless of what reference number you use, as long as the source is a credit card, QuickBooks will exclude that payment. So that's kind of the dynamic of including, excluding payments, what's included, what's not included. I think that gives you a pretty much idea overall of how this screen works. So now let's go ahead and continue with the process so we can see what the e-filing system looks like. I'm going to click here where it says go to 1099 e-file service. And I'll make a quick break here. Some people actually buy printable forms and use the printable form process where they click in here and then click OK. And then they insert the 1099 pre-printed forms, which I'll just go real quick to Office Depot and show you what that would look like. I would never recommend paper filing a 1099. It's just problematic from a filing perspective. I would always do a 1099, even if it costs you a little bit more. But you can put here 1099 and EC. Okay, and you can buy the forms in Office Depot, like right here. Usually they're going to be red because the official e-filing forms are going to be red. So you see here, they have, how many is here? Can't even tell how many, pack of what? Let's see what this is. Pack of 50. Okay, so 50 forms is $26. So it's actually inexpensive. I'll give you that. It's not really that expensive. So if you were to buy the forms, 10, 50, 25, whatever forms you buy, you can actually print straight from here. I'm going to click on preview just so we can kind of see what that looks like. And notice that it just prints the text in the form itself. So obviously you're going to put that form in your printer and this is going to print the text over that form. Then you're going to have instructions and you can paper file this to the IRS. I don't recommend it. I don't do it. I avoid doing that. I prefer to do e-file, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. But if you want to do printing, I just showed you how to do it. Okay, let's move on and let's go to e-file service. And you're going to have a pop-up saying, hey, QuickBooks uses a preferred partner called tax99.com. I'm going to go ahead and click on tax1099.com by clicking on File 1099 Now. This is actually going to now open up a setup screen. So I'm going to create an account. So let's create an account. Then you click on register. Put my code, click on submit. Okay. Then it opens up basically the tax1099.com website, which you could go to directly to the website. Now you have a user ID and password. You don't have to do it within the QuickBooks browser anyway. And then you're going to pick, the type of filing that you want. So depending on, you kind of have to read through it and see which one makes most sense to you. I'm going to do the essential, the simple one, and then click on select and continue. So that's going to enable the plan for you. Remember, you're going to pay for this service because it's an e-filing system. Okay, as soon as you log in, you're not going to see any information because the data is not imported yet. So you're going to have to click here where it says import, and you're going to select QuickBooks Desktop as your importing platform. Click on QuickBooks Desktop. Then you're going to have to download either the QuickBooks plugin or the web connector. You can do one of the two. Actually, let me close this. You can actually do one of the two, and you kind of have to try the one that works. So I'm going to start with, let me do the QuickBooks plugin. Let's just, if that works, and we'll continue doing that. But I know some people sometimes will have an issue with it. I'm going to click on download plugin. Okay, open. And it should take me to an installer. Okay. Or not. Okay, there you go. So I'm going to double click on the application that I just downloaded. Click on run. Okay. run anyway. It says that it's low security. I don't know how to fix that. Okay, so you have to overwrite the security and tell it that it's secure anyway, even though it's telling you it's not secure. Okay, I'll let you make a decision on that. Then I click on next, next. Okay, we wait for this to finish installing. Okay, and again, this is happening because we want QuickBooks to send the data to 1099 to tax 1099 automatically. You don't have to go this route. You can actually just enter it manually, but then what's the point of integrating the two applications? I'm gonna click on next, next, and install. Not sure if it's doing it twice. Maybe I click way too many times. Okay, so that made me close my QuickBooks. So I should open my QuickBooks again. Actually, to be precise, the way you need to open QuickBooks, and don't ask me why this is just the way you need to right click on the icon and then click on where it says run as administrator. Because we installed this extra plugin, you need to run as administrator for QuickBooks to be able to interact with this plugin. So we're going to click there where it says run as administrator, click on yes. In some cases, it'll ask you for that password. Then I'm going to open the company file. Log in. And then you will notice that as soon as you open your QuickBooks file, you're going to get a pop-up, okay, saying, hey, we got a new plugin, basically. This application called 1099 e-file, tax 1099, track 1099, tax1099.com e-file being connected to QuickBooks. Do you want to allow QuickBooks to interact with this app? We're going to go ahead and click on yes, and allow them to get social security numbers. You just have to, otherwise it won't send the social security number to the app. Then we're going to click on continue, then click on done. And then now the app itself is ready to interact with QuickBooks Desktop. Notice that when you click on the vendors menu, you're going to see a new menu here that says tax1099.com e-file. Then we're going to click on upload 1099 data. So we'll click there. Then we log in. Notice it's asking you which year and the type of form. So we're going to do the NEC and 2020. Then click on login. Sometimes the login itself takes a couple of minutes. You just have to be patient. It's going to let you know and give you feedback when the data is being uploaded. Notice that it tells you one by one when it's being uploaded to tax1099.com. It should pop up your browser now, not inside the software, but your browser, your 1099. So this is my Internet Explorer, my Microsoft Edge popped up with that. And then notice that the information from the subcontractor is now listed in here. So we got the two subcontractors here. Again, let's go back to QuickBooks real quick and run that report that we had, the summary report. And notice that, let's do last year, and we'll do the NEC again. Notice that Diana Ramos doesn't get one because she was under that $600 mark. That's why she's not showing here. So notice we got both of the subcontractors in here. You can edit them on the fly and change the amounts if you want to. Of course, that would make it the whole process kind of pointless because we integrate it for the purpose that we don't have to type in or change those values. Then we're going to click on next. Okay. And then it's going to go through just a setup, making sure that all your data is complete. So in here, you get to choose a couple of things. So for example, what do you want to do with these? So if I select these two here, I can in group, change them if I want to. In this case, I'm not going to. This is fine. This is set up correctly. Then I'm going to click on next. Then if there's any missing information, okay, it tells you, hey, you have to fix these things. So notice that my information, that my company's information, it's missing. So I'm going to click OK. So because that information was missing, I'm going to go back into QuickBooks, go into company, go into my company, and I'm going to make sure that I have a full address on their contact information, a full address on their legal information, that under company identification number, I have my employer identification number. I'm just going to make one up here and then go to report information. I think we're good there. And payroll tax, we're good here. So that's good. That's all we needed. Make sure we have an address and a tax ID. So we're going to click OK. yes. And the phone number as well. Let me go back and put that phone number in there. And then click on OK. All right, so I think we're good now. Then I'm going to close that. Go back to vendors, 1099 e-file, upload 1099 data. It's going to ask me to log in again. We're going to make sure that 2020 and NEC is selected. Click on login. Okay, so now that's done. It should pop up my browser screen right away and log into tax1099.com. We're going to go through the same exact process before. Just click on next. Okay. Then we're going to select all the ones that we want to file. So at this point, you get to choose which ones you want. I can just put a little checkbox next to the company name, and that will select all the 1099s for me. Then I'll click on next. Okay. Then on the next screen, basically it tells you when it's scheduled to be sent. You have the option to email the recipient and automatically email the contractor that form, or you can print it out and give it to them manually. Notice that in here, you can click on calculate the fee, click on that, and then it will count the number of forms and give you what the total fee amount is. Okay, so then we're going to click on next, select the two, click on next. I have reviewed the information that has been verified, click on OK. Then it'll take me to my credit card form where we enter the credit card information, pay whatever you got to pay, which is about $3 a form. And then on the next screen, it'll let you complete the e-file and print those 1099s or save them as a PDF for your contractors. And that's it. That's the whole process from the very beginning to the very end. Honestly, I wish it was easier, but that's what we have. That's the way you do it if you have QuickBooks Desktop. One thing I want to go back and just tell you real quick. If you don't want to use the whole plugin and bring in the information in, you can set up your own account in tax1099.com. And then once you go here where it says import, you can import your own spreadsheet with information. So you don't have to use QuickBooks. So you can actually go through this process, select the form that you want. You can download a little template that you can use. You can upload it. And if you have all this data in Excel, you can use that as well. You can also copy and paste in this screen. You have to go through the help menu to just make sure that you know exactly how that data needs to be copy and pasted for it to be worked and matched. But that's the point. The point is you don't have to connect to QuickBooks Desktop. You can load that data in there by itself. You don't even have to import it. You can just go to new, click on new form, and then just select the form that you want and just hand key the information one by one. So you can go contractor by contractor, put their information, put the total dollar amount, and do it like that as well. So ideally, we got the data in QuickBooks. We want to integrate it. We want to do the least amount of keystrokes as possible. But you got all those options available with tax1099.com, which is actually a great software as well. Anyway, I hope you liked it and you enjoyed it. And if you really get stuck with this whole process, that's what accountants are for. That's what accounting firms are for. We do this for our clients all the time. We don't use Tax 1099. We use our own system, but that's really what you save by hiring an accountant, all these hassle of doing it yourself. However, I have nothing against people doing it themselves. I actually encourage it very much. And I have many of my clients that do it. And that's why I do these videos, because if you can do it, if you got the patience for it, if you follow every step by step, you should be fine. But, that would be your choice, whether you do it on your own or you hire an accountant to do so. Anyway, I'll see you on the next one.